Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello, my name is Ben Thomas and you're watching Combat Sports UK. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Brandon Lewis, who returns to Dana White's Contender Series in 2 weeks' time. First of all, Brandon, most important question of the day. How are you doing? How's life treating you at the moment?
I'm doing pretty good. I got my little more morning routine going, getting ready for training in about a few. So gonna get some good sparring in, get some good rounds in, and then I got wrestling later on today, and then followed by more hard training tomorrow. So going good.
It's a busy schedule at the moment, but let's just throw it back. It's now 6-1 for you as a pro fighter, defeating an experienced Taylor Moore at B2 Fighting Series 170. Watching back on that performance, how do you believe it went throughout the first throughout the rounds?
Yeah, so I my opponents are typically a lot taller than I am, I'm 5'4" in a bantamweight division. So I always expect that I'm going to have to pressure forward on most of my opponents and just kind of put my hands on them. So that's exactly what I try to do. I found it pretty early in that fight with Taylor Moore. And but he was throwing some good like linear kicks and some knees to the body to try to slow me down. So it took me a little bit past the first round to kind of sort that out, and then I found it again in the second, and inevitably led to my finish. Rocked him with a straight. He shot for a little bit of a desperation kind of takedown. I sprawled on him, and then ended up winning by TKO. So yeah, it was overall good experience. I also felt the most calm I've ever felt in a fight before. The best experience that you could get. Obviously, training is one thing, but each time you could step in that cage and keep fighting and have that fight time, that's the best kind of experience you could get. So that's the most calm I've ever felt. That's the most composed I've ever been. And I was really able to be a little more analytical this time around, rather than just being going in there and being a little scrappy savage or whatever, just I was able to go in there and really think some things through. So felt good.
So that's obviously the perfect opportunity to get your confidence up as you return to the cage in just 2 weeks' time as you fight Daniel Marcos, who's undefeated as a pro, and it could be a tough fight. Obviously, he's been a bit inactive, though. How excited are you just to get back inside the cage and throw down with the Peruvian?
Oh, I'm excited, especially because I think it's a really interesting matchup. It seems like he's a striker. I think he's got like 7 knockouts on his record, a lot of finishes. It seems like he's an exciting fighter, and that's the exact kind of matchup that I want, especially fighting in front of Dana White. I want somebody that's going to go in, exchange with me, put on a good show, make sure everyone talks about it afterwards, because we want as much hype around this fight as possible. We want to make it as exciting as possible. That way, when I get my finish, it's a good performance overall, and it's going to be an exciting fight for people to watch, and most importantly for Dana White to see and award me that contract. So yeah, I'm excited about this matchup. I don't want anybody that's going to shy away from a fight, and I know Daniel is going to come in and bring it.
So he's obviously been inactive since 2019. So do you see that as an advantage going into this fight? Where do you see your main advantages playing out?
It depends. So there was a point in time in my career where I was out for 3.5 years from fighting. That was due 1 year because I was just unable to find a fight. And then 2.5 years because I went through a back injury and I had to go through this whole recovery process and all that. When I came back, my next fight, I was better than I ever was. There were some kinks, there was a little bit of ring rust, but overall I was training for a good part of that time. I mean, I was out of training for about 2 years out of that 3.5 years, but I was still, pretty active. My mind's always on the game. So I feel like if you come back hungry enough and you always have the, forward thinking mindset, you always try to improve no matter what, you're going to come in there better. The only thing that might prevent you or might hold you back a bit might be just the timing of things. You haven't been in a fight in a while. For me, I didn't spar that entire time. So maybe that was my personal experience just because, it was my little ring rust. I know there's other fighters out there that don't really believe in ring rust. I don't either. But you have that experience. You've been doing martial arts for a while. You've had all these pro fights. I see no reason why some time off going to hold back. If anything, you should be healthy, ready to go for this one.
Well said. And the fight takes place at the UFC Apex on Dana White's Contender Series. You've obviously had the experience on the Contender Series, but felt agonizingly short on the scorecards. Just talk me through that experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was amazing. The UFC, one thing that I could say is that they just really treat you well. Anyone that's come up through the amateurs and then, local regional promotions for pro, and then, as you work your way up, you get treated a little bit better and better. But the jump from anything that I've ever experienced before to how the UFC treats you is huge. They treat you really well. It's an amazing experience. Everything's really in line, kind of done for you. You get like your whole itinerary. They say, hey, go here, do this, do that. And as a fighter, I really appreciate that because I want to do as little thinking about all the outside crap as possible. I want to be able to just focus on my fight, and they really take care of everything else. The people that work at the UFC so far, everyone that I've ever interacted with, they seem really happy to do their job. It's just a really good experience going over there. As far as everything else goes, I mean, I expect to be a champion one day. So as far as like the lights and all the media and all that kind of attention, that's fine by me because, I better get used to it pretty soon if I plan to become a world champion one day. So having that experience before from last year, I mean, I wasn't happy with my performance. And that was more of a matchup thing. There's a lot of things that I worked on in between then. I worked on my takedown defense. I worked on getting back up to my feet, being able to put damage out no matter what situations that I'm put in, and make sure, hey, at all times in the fight, I'm fighting, I'm in the game. Doesn't matter if I'm down around or I get taken down. Don't let that discourage me. Just keep fighting. So, I mean, the fight itself, I learned a lot. And then also the experience with the UFC, it was a great experience, and I can't wait to go through it again.
I've heard a lot of stories about fighters who go into the Contender series and they kind of feel the pressure and it kind of affects their performance on the night. And you briefly just mentioned it with the media, and you'll have to get used to it if you do want to be at the top of the UFC. How was it fighting at the Apex? Did you feel the pressure at the time and fighting in front of Dana White? Because a lot of people do feel that.
Yeah, no, not personally for me. I mean, I've been competing for a long time. I started fighting amateur when I was 15 years old. I started competing in like martial arts tournaments in front of a lot of people when I was like 10. I'm used to crowds and all that kind of stuff. And actually, at the Apex, there is no crowds. Especially last year, there was COVID. I think each fighter could bring like one or two people. So it's actually, when you walk out in there, it's very like when you're fighting in COVID. It's like it's completely silent. It's for broadcasting. So you walk out, you don't get any walkout music, nothing like that. It's just completely dead silence, and you just know the boss is just sitting right over there waiting, watching you fight. I was prepared for it though. Like I said, I see myself as a champion one day. So this is something I'm kind of mentally preparing myself beforehand, and I don't let this pressure get to me. If anything, it excites me. I'm like, hey, that's the man I got to impress. Let me go and put on a good fight, good show, and let's get this job done,
So would you say visiting the Apex and fighting in front of Dana White kind of motivate you to keep striving and just keep getting better at the sport?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, with everything that comes with the UFC, it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of stuff that's new to you. Like I said, the media, silent rooms, all this and stuff. It's a lot, but I've prepared myself mentally for it, and it motivates me to be even more prepared for bigger stages and spotlights, because the Apex in front of like no crowd, whatever, that's an experience in itself. But I can't imagine what it would be like walking through, just like a giant, like a T-Mobile arena with, thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the crowd, and the whole production, Bruce Buffer announcing your name, the little things like that add up. It's something that I'm prepared for. And so when I get like a little bit of taste of that, of how the UFC does things, it just gets me excited for even bigger and even bigger. So it's something that I'm ready for and I'm excited for.
What a lot of fighters who go onto the Contender series, if they do fall agonizingly short like you did, there are a lot that don't actually get second chances to go back on there and fight for what they want in the future. Did you believe that you get another shot at the Contender series? Obviously, you were impressed recently. Did you think there'll be another chance for you to go there to Vegas, fight in front of Dana White, and have another shot for a UFC contract?
I think it was even though that fight that I had last time in the Contender series was the most boring fight I've ever had. Anyone that's ever watched me fight, they know I go in there, I try to finish, I put on an exciting fight. I don't think if you watch any other of my fights, you could ever say that I'm a boring fighter. That one was boring, but I believe that was mostly because my opponent and what he was trying to do. He was just trying to wrestle, hold me down. And towards the end, I got frustrated where I was smacking him in the head. And I was like, "Come on, hey, do you want to do this in front of Dana White?" I was talking smack to him, and I think you could see my intention every time I was on the feet. I was pressing forward, I was striking, I was trying to do my thing, but I didn't have the opportunity for too long, and then I got controlled, and it was just a boring fight from then on out. So I think in the post-fight press conference, Dana did say, "Hey, there's a lot of talent here." I forgot what his exact words, but he said he wanted to see me back on, just get him, let's just see some more wins out of him, and I want to see him fight again. So I believe, even though I was disappointed with my performance, I think you could tell from the outside my intention. I wanted to go in there and put on a good show, and luckily Dana saw that too. So my next fight, I go and I finish Taylor Moore. And then I think that was just my opportunity. Hey, okay, this guy's ready. He clearly wants to put on good fights. He clearly wants to finish fights, put on exciting fights. Let's get him back in here and give him another shot. So I'm happy at it.
So for those out there listening now who maybe haven't seen you fight before, what can they expect when you step into the cage at Dana White's Contender Series in a few weeks' time?
Every second is violence. You could see every single second, every minute, I'm going to try to finish my opponent. I'm going to find a way, whether it be by knockout, submission, whatever it may be. I try to put a definitive end to the fight. I don't believe in leaving, the decision, letting it up to the judges. It's just not my style. And I just want to make sure if I win, there's no arguments. Hey, oh, that was a close fight. Oh, you could have swung the other way. No, if I go in and I fight you, there's going to be a clear winner and loser, and that's what I'm going to go. And this fight with Daniel Moore, or Daniel, sorry, I don't even look at my opponents too much. I know his first name's Daniel, but this guy that I'm fighting in Contender Series, I'm going to go in, look for the finish, and whatever round that may come, whether it's the first, second, or third, you're going to see a brutal ending to that fight.
That is the mindset we love. We love a fighter who's just all out violence and can't wait to get the fight done. And we wish you all the luck at Dana White's Contender Series, and we'll all be watching at Combat Sports. So let's just move it on to a bit about you now. Over the past 10 years in this sport, this is a question I love to ask just fighters, just to know what the sport has done for them. What have you learned? What have you kind of learned about yourself? Have you improved as an individual? How do you find the sport treating you?
Oh, I'm a huge advocate for martial arts in general, just because of my experience with martial arts and with fighting. I think fighting just teaches you a lot about yourself, teaches you a lot about life. There's a lot of things that you could relate to fighting, that you could relate to almost anything. So many things. The most important one that I think what drew inspiration for me in the beginning when I got into it was just the challenges you have to overcome in order to accomplish something that's worth accomplishing. That's great. And you have to be willing to put yourself through a lot of hardships, a lot of things like that to accomplish a goal. And that applies not only to fighting and winning a championship in the UFC, this applies to anything in life. And as I've grown, and especially as I've been taken away from the sport when I was injured for that period of time, it really taught me about myself, because I was without martial arts for 3 years, and dealing with personal things at that time without having martial arts as an outlet, I was able to luckily handle because of all my years in martial arts and how to deal with certain situations and emotionally handle certain events, things like that. So yeah, martial arts teaches you a lot about yourself, and I think it overall has a lot of concepts that apply to life. And I'm a huge supporter, and I recommend everybody to at least go out to a gym, get punched in the face once in a controlled environment. I don't say go out there and take a fight, but you'll learn a lot about yourself, and I truly recommend it.
And finally, you're only a youngster still, and with another shot on the Dana White's Contender Series coming up in a few weeks' time, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10, I see myself as a champion at that period of time. Now, I'm not going to talk all crazy and act like, oh, I could beat the #1 guy in the world right now. I understand I have a long way to go. But like you said, I'm still young. I have time to grow. So with winning this contract in the UFC, I'm hoping to get more access to resources that they provide, like the UFC Performance Institute. It's a huge facility. They have a lot of resources for their fighters as far as nutrition, physical therapy, how to do things kind of the proper ways an elite athlete should. I haven't had access to those resources as of yet, So I know I have that much more room to grow as a fighter and as an athlete. I kind of started this whole thing off as like a martial artist first, and I learned how to kind of be an athlete second, if that makes sense. So I think with additional resources and how to be an elite level athlete, and just being around the game for a while, I'm only going to grow and get better. And eventually I'm going to get that UFC championship, whether it be 5 years from now, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'm going to get it at some point.
Well, there we have it. Those are all the questions I got for you. You can catch Brandon Lewis's fight on Dana White's Contender Series on UFC Fight Pass on 13th of September. Thank you very much for joining me, and we wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you having me on and conducting this interview.
Lovely. I'm sure we'll speak again.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man.